All right, so this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board commission members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count toward quorum. The meeting may be broadcast live and will be recorded on ECAT. To use Zoom, you'll need to use the link on the agenda or download the Zoom application at www.zoom.us and create an account or use one of the call-in numbers listed on the agenda. You'll need the webinar ID to join by phone only. While conducting meetings remotely, we'll endeavor to keep meeting operations as close to our standard procedures as possible. However, use of the platform will necessitate some additional meeting protocols. While the board members or commissioners and applicants will be on video and audio, public participants will join the webinar as attendees, meaning they are muted and with no video feed from them. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, members of the public can be recognized by using the raise hand function found under participants from Zoom, or make a request with the Q&A function. If you're joining only by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. If an applicant wishes to display materials, please make the request to the chair. There is a markup function in Zoom which will allow you to call out specific areas of presentation materials, not necessarily appropriate. As in any public meeting, indecent behavior will not be tolerated. Anyone who abuses use of the meeting platform will be terminated from the meeting. Business will be handled at the times indicated on the agenda. Business not concluded in the allotted time will be tabled to the end of the meeting to allow for timely logins and remote attendance. Board members are asked to announce themselves when making a motion and second, so that it will be clear to the audience and minute takers who made motions. All votes will be by roll call vote. When all business indicated on the agenda has been completed, the members will vote to adjourn the meeting, signaling the end and the termination of the ECAT recording. All participants will be disconnected at that time. Tom, are you still with us? He may be getting out of the car.
Oh, I'm here now. Thank you.
And do we need a roll call attendance?
Yes, we do.
We certainly do. Folks could do a quick roll call, Steph. If you could names, we can say aye.
Yes.
No present.
Yes. Jim Lee?
Here.
Edmund Hands?
Aye.
Al Benson? Al, you need to unmute yourself if you can.
Present.
John Ventresco?
Present.
Dennis Sheedy?
Here.
Amos Kedem?
Present.
And Meredith Keach?
Here.
Oh, and Amanda Varela.
I know that you know that Amanda Varela is here, but you didn't call my name.
Thank you.
Just called on you.
And Tom Broussard is here as well.
Sorry, Tom. Missed you.
Oh, no, not at all. All good. So I'm going to walk into my house and the dog will bark. So I'm going to hit mute. But if we could go a little bit out of order, we can, at the very least, begin talking about the Affordable Housing Trust. And Wayne, I know that regrettably, chair of the Affordable Housing Trust, Nikki Dosumian, is not feeling well. So she couldn't be present today, but she mentioned that she was able to connect with you and you would be able to walk us through any information we might need.
Correct. Thank you for that. The draft application before the CPC tonight is very similar to the letter of interest that the group considered several months ago. This is essentially the Affordable Housing Trust requesting the 10% community housing allocation from the CPA funds for this coming fiscal year. And in connecting with the town accountant for updated numbers on that request, her best estimate at this time is that 10% for the upcoming FY25 will be $223,500. And she also encouraged the trust to request that the 10% from the second supplemental allocations from the state in 2022 and 2023 also be transferred to the trust if the group was willing to do that. So the full ask of the Affordable Housing Trust is 285,874, of which 223,500 is the 10% for FY25. 47,570 is 10% of that second supplemental from 2022 from the state disbursement, and 27,948 is 10% of the supplemental from the 2023 state disbursement. The application has the annual report from last year that gives a good overview of a lot of the trust's projects and programs, and also the trust's 5-year action plan. And as a late-breaking update on some of the projects, we did close on transferring Pequannock Avenue to South Shore Habitat for Humanity last week, and they were on site today planning demo of the abandoned building there, and looking to start construction as soon as they can. And we look to transfer 10 Morse Road to Habitat probably December 11th or 12th, after the 20-day appeal period happens or concludes. People may remember this is a proposed 2-family, so 2 family units of affordable housing. So they needed a special permit from the planning board, which they received last week. That's been signed and recorded with the town clerk today. So there's a 20-day appeal period, after which they will look to move towards closing. And there's also the potential for a right of first refusal parcel that we should know more about the viability of that in December.
Excellent. Thank you, Wayne. Team, any questions or thoughts for Wayne?
Yes, Wayne, is there any way that when those houses are laid out that they could be facing east-west, so there's a roof facing southward, so that it'll facilitate the installation of photovoltaics? And the reason I'm bringing it up is it may go a long way toward decreasing the cost of energy within the house for the participants. There's enough grants around so that they may well want to do that in the future.
Yeah. The layout of both Pequannock and Morse is already set by site constraints. Pequannock needed a variance because it's a pre-existing non-conforming lot, and the house is being reconstructed on the foundation of the existing house. And then for Morse, there are wetland resources at the rear of the parcel, and also 2 septic systems. So that has been a site design that's influenced how the houses are laid out. So both have already been approved with the variance and with the special permit, as they've already been proposed. We will certainly encourage that in future RFPs that we put out. We want to be mindful that we don't increase construction costs for nonprofit developers, but your point is very well taken on being mindful of making it possible to adapt or add sustainable technologies in the future.
It's a great point, Al. And thank you, Wayne, for following up with the Affordable Housing Committee to help them appreciate. We would be looking to consider that wherever possible and to support that, perhaps.
Yeah, Tom, I have one more point, if I could, please.
Sure.
Are those houses being considered for heat source pump?
I do not know. I will ask Habitat what they're thinking of. A lot of Habitat's design and construction is driven by having volunteers, including the family themselves, do as much of the work as possible. So that can be an influence on what they use in the houses, what they build them with. I'm trying to think with, we concluded a project with them at Electric Avenue a couple of years ago, and there's a propane tank, I think, for cooking. And I don't know the heat source. It might be gas. They don't have an oil tank in there. But I will definitely ask Habitat if that is something that could be considered for these properties.
Then I have a question for the whole committee. Would this be, if they can put in the ground source heat pump, would that be something that we should consider to put a little bit of extra money in? I mean, it would eliminate 60 years, 50 years of probably oil consumption to fuel the house. And it would also be cost effective versus oil for the homeowners or home occupiers.
I'll happy to let the team go after me, but I know my thoughts would be I'm happy to explore it, Al, and would want to understand the costs relative to whether or not we could fundamentally build more housing. I think being environmentally conscious and certainly cost conscious for this particular audience is important. So maybe that's a topic we could explore with the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. And in this case, it would have been with Habitat for Humanity, who controls the project, I believe, up on Transferal, Wayne, if I understand that correctly.
Yeah, we can certainly talk about it with them. I know their plans for these two houses are pretty much already set. We can see if that is something that they would consider for this. They may well be able to do so.
I guess my point is, though, like technically they have control of it, right? Like they don't have to do anything. The PNS has already been affected for Quanticut, for example.
Yeah,
they're on their path, but going forward, I think we could work with the Affordable Housing Trust to try to consider Al's appropriate points that were raised to see if there's a more meaningful way we can be supportive to lower the cost structure for this group in need.
Thank you.
Does anybody else in the team have thoughts? All right. Well, it sounds like we'll explore it on the collective behalf. And Al, I'm happy to connect you with Chair Dostumian from the Affordable Housing Trust.
I think proposals are good, but we should have a handle on the cost of these options and what they mean. And not only the investment now, but what you say for the future. And have these figures in our hands, because that is what you need in order to discuss that with Habitat for Humanity or any other developer that is doing. And by the way, that is a good argument for all the development, not only the affordable housing.
I think you're right. I know systems. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did on the board when we were reviewing the new construction for the dealer. I did ask if they at least build the building in a way in which they can put photovoltaic on the roof. Even if they don't put it, at least the building should be built to be ready for it.
Wherever
but
possible.
as the board, as you, we don't have any say besides asking at this point. There is no way to force that thing through.
Agreed. Yeah, I think the takeaway, and I should have been clear, is just to go get smarter about the proposal so we could bring it back to the committee to see if we wanted to incorporate that on a go-forward basis to let the Affordable Housing Trust know that if appropriate for the utilization of CPC funds for that, and I'm not sure it is, so I think there's a lot of exploration to be done regarding the role that CPC can play in looking to explore with that. We can certainly always ask and encourage and promote, but I do not know if it's appropriate that the CPC would allocate directly grants to be associated with the construction of geothermal heat pumps. But if it's okay, I think it's something we could take offline to try to explore both with Stephanie and Wayne, the applicability and appropriateness, and with the chair of the Affordable Housing, who, look, if systems cost $35,000, she may say, over time, I'd rather build the extra house if that's appropriate. And we'd just love to get their thoughts as their committee as well. I think it's the appropriate questions to be asking, that's for sure. Ed?
Maybe in future discussions, we should press that option on both the Affordable Housing Trust, but also if we're working with Habitat, to at least design the house so that it could be retrofitted with either photovoltaics or heat pumps. I certainly have a 1955 house that was easily retrofitted with photovoltaics, and I'm considering heat pumps for the future. So,
Sure, I agree wherever possible, without a doubt. Okay. Anything else, team, on this, Al?
No, thank you.
We do have, I think this is in our normal steps of progress, and I give ourselves credit for being able to make this next statement. I think this is normally where we would recommend to the applicant to proceed with a final draft. However, much like last meeting, I think there are opportunities where if we feel it's an appropriate application, that we could make a decision to consider this application final and to recommend it be included on the next warrant and to approve the application. Go ahead, John.
I'm sorry, Tommy, didn't mean to interrupt. I motion that forward.
Sure.
I'll
Is there a
second.
second? So I think that was Ventresco and Lee. Sorry, I'm on the phone. Or Sheedy. Was that Dennis? Was that you?
Yeah.
All right, Dennis, there you go. No, I'm not in any way saying you sound like Jim, or Jim that you sound like Dennis. Making sure everybody knows.
We're both
I
honored.
wasn't sure if I was first. I didn't want to step on Jim's toes.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I wouldn't want to get in the way of Mr. Jim Lee. But I'll give you the nod, Dennis. So just watch your back for a while if you did step on Jim's toes. So that's been Tresco, Sheedy, and I'll just go around the phone. Mr. Lee,
Aye.
Ed Hands,
I
John Ventresco,
Aye.
Al Benson,
Aye.
Amos Kenna,
Aye.
Dennis Sheedy,
Aye.
Meredith Geach,
Aye.
and Amanda Varela.
All right.
Excellent. So with that, I'm going to ask you all to indulge me for 1 second because I'm home. I'm going to get off the phone and log real quickly in via the computer. It's all ready. It should be just a minute. But staff, if you could just keep an eye out for me and let me in.
I will.
Thank you all.
Amanda?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
I was just curious. Did you know? I didn't know if it was spam. I had gotten an email from you about a CPC meeting on yesterday that was being canceled, and I wasn't sure what it was about.
I had originally sent out an invitation and for all of them, and it's on the wrong date. So I've been subsequently waiting to send out invitations for all of them. So going forward, they should all be on the same date, and I'll probably just cancel all the ones I sent out since Wayne subsequently did it.
Okay, thank you.
Right now we are cooking with gas. Thank you all. I apologize for the technical and being in the car and all that good stuff. But it was a great visit to the high school for parent-teacher conferences, and we can all relate to appreciating those moments when we have them.
nightmare for me.
Yeah, it's nice to have a good one, Ed. I'll just leave it at that. It's nice to
I
have.
was gonna say, that's if they're good.
Yep. Well said. Okay, so a couple things. One, I can circle back now that I can see everybody on the minutes. Two, Meredith, just want to also point out, thank you so much for reposting the picture and for taking the time to respond to all the people that have engaged and getting the word out there and being so thoughtful and diplomatic with all of your responses. So appreciate that. And then for those that are wondering, the town posted pictures of the tennis courts, basketball courts, and pickleball courts, and Meredith reposted and shared. There was a lot of feedback. I would say 95% of all of the commentary was great, looks awesome, can't wait, love it. And there were one or two that probably wanted some additional information that Meredith, I think, thoughtfully pointed them in the right direction and or pointed out ways that they could engage, which for somebody who has gotten a lot of questions from the public, I always appreciate being able to constructively reply and point them in the right direction to resources. So well played, Meredith, well played.
Thank you.
The other thing, minutes, if I could just circle back to some housekeeping, I would, unless there are questions, thoughts, concerns, or corrections, take a motion to accept the regular session minutes dated October 12th, 2023.
So moved. Lee?
Second.
That's Lee Ventresco. I noticed Dennis Sheedy did not get engaged on that one for fear of the great Lee. I'll go around the table backwards this time. Amanda? Meredith?
Aye.
Thomas?
Aye.
Dennis?
Aye.
Al?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Tom Broussard is an aye as well. Thank you so much. So next up, I believe, keeping in order would be the Keachfield fencing. Hopeful that we have somebody in the audience that would most likely be looking to join. Mark Pianadosi. Stephanie?
Yeah, and I tried to promote him and he declined. So, here we go. I think he's joining us now.
Perfect. Mark, are you there?
He should be, he's
Damn.
supposed to be in limbo right now.
Just
I
need to
see him on the screen, but he was muted. He is unmuted now.
Perfect. Mr. Pianadosi,
Yes, can you hear me?
we got you now, sir. Excellent. Hopefully
Okay.
you can hear us. Thank you so much for joining
Yes,
us
happy to
tonight,
be here.
taking time out of your day. And
Thank you for the
importantly,
invitation.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for shooting over the application. Candidly, I think sometimes it's the smaller ones like this from concerned residents like yourself that can make just as big a difference as some of the larger projects we get on regularly. So again, thank you very much for that. I'm just gonna open up my, here we go. So just for the team's understanding, this application is for Keach Park fencing. So it's fencing down the first baseline of, I'll just use field 1, fencing down the third baseline of field 2, and down the first baseline as needed on field 2. And it also, Meredith, just want to make sure we are still keeping in mind the ability to put a fence at the front. So before we do anything between the playground and the parking lot, we'd love to get your feedback as to where you think that might best be situated. But that is included in this quote, and also included is putting yellow curbing onto the fence to make sure that if somebody falls on top of it, there's the safety factor. Meredith and I did have the good fortune to meet with Joe Pitti, I don't know the official title. He seems to have a lot of words.
Deputy Director of Community Planning and Programs. Basically,
Okay.
that's the abridged version.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, there might actually be another couple onto that.
There are.
Who was appreciative of the project, understood the project, and is not against the project. I think, as always, he appropriately points out that the fields are multi-use, but he doesn't see any issue with this. And so we got his support on this as well. Meredith, I just want to make sure the Rec Commission and you as a representative there, you also, I know, have been along this journey and no thoughts or concerns as currently constructed either.
Yeah, so the Recreation Commission just asked that Joe is involved in the choosing of the materials and the location of where the fencing will be put. So we just want him to work with you, Mark, on that. There might be some repairs needed to the fields, and so that kind of comes into play if the repairs are done. And it would be best for us to have him involved in that, but it's not like he's going to be intruding or anything, but just kind of a partnership there to help pick and make sure the materials and the location of it is placed correctly. And then, Tom, to address your question about fencing around the Tot playground area, the idea for the fencing there is just to protect kind of if you've ever had a child who's a runner. The playground structure area abuts the parking area. And it just is a little bit of a liability when you have toddlers, especially if you have a couple of them. One could easily run into the parking lot area. And quite frankly, you know, it abuts woods there. And with increasing coyote activities and other animals, we kind of want to keep that protected as well.
Absolutely. And actually, interestingly enough, we lived on Rockland when the kids were real young, and that was our park. So, yep, I know exactly well what you're getting at there. I was just trying to see if I could. Here it is. I'll just share my screen real quick. Hopefully you all, nope, wrong screen. No, you can see it, right?
That's it.
So what we're talking about, team, is this particular lot is right, this play lot is right near the parking lot. And while there is a chain link that usually serves as a barrier right across these two stones, I think, Meredith, we're probably looking in this area for an extension of fence that just makes it a bit safer, or wherever you think appropriate. I didn't mean to interject.
Yeah, I mean, certainly fencing this, I can't point, but fencing in the entire area would be fabulous, right? Because then you have a green space here. I'm most concerned with right around the play structures, right? So if we were to fence basically the whole green area where the picnic benches are there, along with the play structure, that would give you a nice buffer area to run in. But that's less important unless we were going to expand the play structure area. The area that we're most concerned with is directly around the play structures.
So would it be this entire square of fencing?
Yeah.
I'm not, okay, just for full transparency, and that's on me, I'm not sure that was in the quote. I misunderstood our initial conversation and was thinking it would be probably about 50 feet of fencing. So I think if it's okay, what will probably be needed is to try to understand how much square footage this full surround of the play area is.
Yeah, so if we were to do a chain link where you originally, I'm sorry, I must have missed some of the paperwork here. This was kind of what I'm looking at. If we were to just fence right there, you still have the area where you could walk through. And we need to keep that area where that chain link that you referenced accessible for ambulances. So that would be open. We'd kind of be, it would be like, you know, turning the heat on and keeping the window open. It's, if we were going to do just what you're indicating, it would have to go up above by the play structures. But then again, we can't go along that path where an ambulance would need to access in. And so we'd need to put some type of fencing, even if we were to do just in the front of where the play structure is. But I'm not sure that that would be fully adequate.
Okay, so I guess I would just ask Meredith, now that we know, if I think and Mark, I apologize. So this is something that we want to have buttoned up very tightly. So I would ask Meredith if the exact thing that we want, I know we talked about this a couple times, so that way we can have the applicant go back and get a quote that includes that.
Yeah.
We have built in a little bit of room, I believe, from the cost, but we have to get the plastic fencing. So Mark, apologies for us giving you a slight curve, but I think what we're trying to do is to just accomplish two things with one opportunity of a project. And team, I think just so that everybody knows, Meredith, could you articulate would you have gates? Would you have it? Yes, gates.
Correct, gates. So you'd have, so basically the play structure area would be fenced in. Ideally, it would be great if we could just run a fence along right in front of the play structure in between the playground area and the parking lot. But we can't do that because that is how the police and fire access the fields. So that's the problem there, is we would have to create some type of fencing. Even if we did it, as you can kind of see the black lines there to kind of keep a runner from going, we could theoretically just do one side of it depending on the pricing there. It's more just to keep those, so just so folks know, it's a tot playground, right? So it's not for bigger kids. It's really designed for little kids. And so that's kind of your age group that is is liable for having a runner. And when the parking lot is filled, the parking lot was actually designed for 160 parking spots. And so that place can really get filled, and it's just a little bit of a concern there. And I apologize for throwing a curveball here. It was just what I had in mind, but I can work with Mark on it. It's not a big deal. Just fencing.
Perfect. That would be great. Because I know for his application, it's really involves the fencing on the field, but it's a killing of two birds with one stone. Team, does anybody have questions?
I don't have any, Tom, other than this is an important project in my scope of thinking here, and moving forward is a no-brainer. As you quoted, Tom, that just needs to be defined, and with pricing and footage of the fencing and moving forward.
Tom, you know what? Can we just move forward with the fencing over by where the fields are and kind of table the conversation and vote for the play structure? I think that would be more advantageous if I kind of reach out to some of the moms locally and ask them further. I don't want to hinder the fencing over by where the baseball diamond is. And so if we can just kind of scrap the conversation about the play structure and move forward with just the ball field, that would be better.
Sure, I can do that. Team, I'm assuming that works for everybody?
That's for me.
I'm seeing head nods. Excellent. Mark, is there any additional information that may have come up since you filed the application that you want us to be aware of? Oh, I think you're on mute again, sir. We still can't hear you. No, we don't got you. You guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still on mute.
Up, there we go. Up, try again, Mark. He almost was off.
It's odd. He wasn't on mute before. So for those of you, that's Sydney, crack IT assistant. Sydney, welcome to your first Community Preservation Committee meeting. Yeah, we still can't hear you.
Mark could enter into the chat and we could then read that.
Yeah, Matt, do you want to just, Mark, do you want to just type into the chat, and if there is no updates, that's fine too?
And then Tom, if you could stop sharing your screen because I can't see the chat with
Sure.
the screen sharing on.
When all else fails, bring in your children.
That's right.
While Mark works to figure out the chat and or the microphone, does the team need this a similar type question where this could be a final application as opposed to going from draft and then rediscussing for a final? Does anybody have an opposition to that if we can get to that point tonight?
Nope, I think.
Well played, Mark.
Nothing new to report. Okay.
Awesome.
I would move that go forward.
That's Jim. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, that was Ed. Sorry, John. That was a real quick Ed call. So I'll go around the horn. Amanda? Dennis?
Aye.
Meredith?
Aye.
Amos?
Aye.
Al?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And I, Tom Broussard, I'm an I as well. So Mark, again, I know we can't hear you, but thank you so much for bringing this project to us. We look forward to, the steps would be, now that we have approved it, we've recommended it, which means it can now be placed on the warrant. The finance committee will then have a chance to opine. The select board will then have a chance to opine, and it will be placed on the next warrant in May. Thankfully, I think we've had some great partnership with them, and the CPC has yet to recommend an article that hasn't had the support of both of those bodies, and I don't think it would change with this one. So again, thank you so much, and no worries to apologize. We have the tech issues all the time ourselves. Good to see you all. Thanks, Mark. Next up, we may or may not have some experts regarding the Swiss Park construction joining our call. At any given point, one of them may or may not abstain from voting. I think, Ed, you have traditionally abstained, and John, you have voted, as you're both on the Swift Park Design Committee.
Works.
And I think, Ed, you have a presentation to walk us through tonight, or an update or information?
Yeah. Your run of success getting the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen to approve may run out on this proposal. As you can see from the submitted materials, the current cost estimate is $1.3 million. And that includes contingency and incidentals. So the actual cost of the building is still slightly over $1 million. There is a placeholder in there for a water feature, statue, whatever, which is certainly larger than we anticipate spending. The water feature itself, however, has to have infrastructure, which becomes a major expense. So I'm happy to be abstaining here because I'm not sure that I could support the proposal at this point.
John, as the non-abstaining member, do you want to go next and help us get our thoughts? And
so
the
this
committee's
is
thoughts?
sure. So Stephanie approached Ed and I through the town administrator to put this project forward. And for those who don't know, it's to this has been a park since Ed, what, 1935?
1934, it was donated by the owners.
And so it's for all intents and purposes, it's been neglected, but it was to honor the 1918 pandemic. And when Stephanie,
could I interrupt? I would hesitate to say that it was neglected. It's been well maintained by the town and the property owners that abutted it. It just hasn't been developed into a full-scale park.
Okay, I'll take that, Ed. The thought process is it's a gateway area, obviously. This area is progressing quite well with new development, with taking a property and restoring it. And so if anybody's driven by, and I'm sure you all have, it's moving on up. It's really progressing quite well. We think this park, to rededicate it to our first responders of 2020, and also to honor the historical integrity of the area. It is, without a doubt, much higher than we expected. But again, probably no surprise with inflation and everything else. We are, Ed, myself, Stephanie, we've met with the DPW and so in our committee, and we're trying to get this price down. We're hoping that we can get it into the 800 to 900,000 mark. The water feature was and I'll take credit for that, Ed, that although you were on board originally, has become an albatross financially. We don't really have any features in town of this magnitude that we were planning. And again, as Ed had mentioned, the infrastructure on this is a small fortune. So we're in the process of trying to find a sculpture or something that would be a focal point in that area that you see in the center where the square is in the round circle. This will be surrounded by a granite area, and as you can see, we can see the walkways. We have scaled down the landscaping because of costs. We're going to be having brick walls here. We have the
wait, could I
chip in time.
Yeah, we scaled down the landscaping at the request of the DPW, because basically the way you design a landscape is to have 3 layers: a ground cover layer, a mid layer, and a tree layer. And the DPW claims that it does not have the manpower to maintain the property we already have. So they want a mowable site. And we agreed to make changes where most of the landscaping on the next page would be just the trees rather than the undercoating. And there may be 2 small areas where there would be flowered planting, which would both, as John pointed out, substantially reduce the cost of the landscaping, and second of all, accommodate the maintenance features. Most things that the town has been responsible for, such as the rockery, have always run into problems. If you need to weed it, we really don't have the manpower to do that.
And we both agree on this, Ed and myself, and Stephanie, obviously, with her input. So we want to respect this area because we're not going to get another chance at a park in this area. It's going to be the only one in this area. Again, respecting the historical integrity of it, and actually the 2 pandemics, the 1918 and obviously the 2020, as I mentioned. We're working extremely hard trying to get this into a good budget because we were both kind of taken aback by the costs. We do need CPC funding, so we're working, again, very hard trying to move forward. We're hoping to have this kicked off for our 300th anniversary, so we've got just a little over 1 year to put this all together. We're looking at external funding. We haven't got that far yet, but welcome any questions to Ed and I. Anybody?
Just to jump in for a second on the funding, there are a couple of places where a moderate amount of donations could come in. For instance, sponsoring benches, sponsoring the bollard lighting, which would be relatively inexpensive and might attract ordinary townspeople. And then there's the possibility of getting some help with the ground preparation, which is another substantial expense.
And Tom, I see that you're zooming in on what it currently looks like, which I think is helpful. I also have a color a rendering or concept plan. It's not a true rendering, but I could share that too, which I think will kind of lend itself better to people's imaginations than the black and white, which we included in the. So let me do this. Can everybody see?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So part of the project also proposes formalizing the parking here. It's recognized a couple of things. One, the existing building owns the property here, and this area provides parking for the Swift store building. And then this whole area is paved, and people park along here, but it's not formalized, it's not striped. And the entrance is very free form. There, you can enter pretty much from anywhere along Paquonicket Avenue between the top of this island and this area here. So this would formalize the parking. It would provide benefits to the owner's property here, as well as provide parking here. And then right now, the old pass-through is this area here that's paved, and the project would reclaim that and convert it to park space. This area here, these are walkways and paths that would be pitched so that they are accessible, so that all visitors could appreciate and enjoy the park. And these are proposed to be a concrete paving material. The center would be a granite, likely a granite material. These would be benches. This would be the centerpiece. And again, exactly what that will look like is yet to be determined. And then we have, these are wall benches, right, Ed? I think those
That's
are
correct. Yep.
the wall benches. So this would be a wall, but there would be seating along that wall for people to sit. You'd have a monolith granite wall here. This would bear the name of the park. And then you would have these wing walls here. And that would be where the park interpretive language would be, talking about the first responders and the two pandemics, and also the history of the Furnace Village district.
It's a nice graphic. I appreciate that, and the background info, Steph.
Just to reiterate, if for those who might not recall, there were 3 plans that were presented to us, and this one, not looking at the cost, was the one that we all were in favor of, and it just happened to be the least expensive out of all the plans. The other ones are more urban, more contemporary. We felt this fit in more with our community, with the area in general.
That's good to know.
And just a little note, this would be these areas here. This would be a split rail fence along here.
And the light colored green semicircles, with the change in the landscaping, that would be
right here.
Yep, that would be increased, providing more meeting space or band concert space in the park. So that could be a plus as well.
We're also hoping down the road in the future that we can tie this into the trails. I don't know if Ed, you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's conservation land immediately in back of this at New Pond and Old Pond, and there's some rough passageways, I guess you'd call it, down there, which is a little bit safer than walking on the side of the street right now. And if we could tie those in, simply sort of aiming them in the right direction, I think we'd have an even bigger impact on the positive impact on the neighborhood. The sidewalks on Foundry Street are not coming anytime soon, but the design makes provision for them.
When you say anytime soon, DPW is projecting 8 to 10 years, so we're quite a ways down the road for that.
Yeah, for somebody.
Quite a ways that will pass in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I think Meredith has a question, team.
Yeah, so in regards to the sidewalk, I'm incorrect in my understanding. I thought that there was a street light going in there in front of the sawmill development, and that they were going to be putting in at least one sidewalk as part of the plan along that corridor. Is that
was part of the discussion of with the DPW guys? Yes, there is going to be a light put in, and at that point, it's possible that there would be a sidewalk essentially just in front of the park itself.
That's so
Uh,
disappointing. It's such a dangerous stretch of road. I thought we were doing a sidewalk that went from Target to Five Corners.
I'm sorry if I could correct Ed. Right now, they're working on wrapping up the pre-25% design phase and then moving into the 25% design phase for the roadway. And just a little bit of background information, the town is responsible for that engineering so that it can move forward in the TIP program, the Transportation Improvement Program. And as it sits right now, the plan is for a sidewalk that will extend from Five Corners all the way to pretty much Robert Drive. I think it's going to extend the full length to Robert Drive. And that there will be a multi-use path on the south side. So on the north side, you'll have a typical traditional sidewalk. On the south side, it will be a wider multi-use path for strollers, walkers, and bicycles. So that's the current plan, Meredith.
And what's the
timing
time
on
frame
that,
on that?
Stephanie?
Oh, thanks. Sorry.
I'm sorry, that is the 8 to 10 year out project. Yeah, but that's again, that's how long that those projects take in the planning. You know, we see the results of the Depot Street improvements now, and 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it seemed like that was an eon. So I understand it's 10 years out and it won't be immediate. And then yes, there will be a traffic signal, a light at the corner of Pequonnet Avenue and Foundry Street.
That's not 10 years out though, right?
No, that should be in by next spring.
Is that going to be a
There will be
pedestrian?
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, there will be other traffic improvements along Foundry Street with that roadway improvement project that is 8 to 10 years out.
So
John,
just so anybody
sorry, I
knows
think
the
John
reason.
had a question.
Oh,
I could
sorry.
get cut
Sorry.
off.
Yep, go ahead.
John, did you have a question?
Oh, no, just quick, Stephanie, I'm sorry. So is that going to be a pedestrian flashing light at Pequonnet? Or is it actually?
This is, it is not going to, so I don't know that it will be a pedestrian light. I think it's just going to be for traffic. The longer that will be improved upon as part of the long-term project.
I would think it'd be imperative, especially when we've got the.
Yes, yes, because that's the whole idea, is to provide pedestrian, bicycle, and accessibility amenities along the roadway. But this light that's going to be put in is to help mitigate for the increase in traffic that will be coming out of the Sawmill residential development project.
I hope you're correct, because I remember in the very beginning stages of this, Stephanie, when we talked with our engineers, the town engineers, that they, at that time, and that was a year and a half ago, that I think it was at the 25% design stage, they still weren't sure about the sidewalk, because we had quite a discussion about that.
That's correct. And then not so long after that, Greg told me that what they're looking at now is the sidewalk on the north. Now, it can change. I can't promise you, he's not promising that there might not be changes, but right now that's what they're looking at and trying to make work.
And even more important now with our proposed park, for safety reasons alone.
And I think Meredith was trying to also ask a question or make a comment.
Yeah, no, my angst about a 10-year plan is that people walk that stretch from Target to Five Corners regularly, and there's no shoulder, and the solar glare is so dangerous heading towards Mansfield.
Absolutely.
I get so nervous when I see people, and I know with 44 homes going in, it's going to get worse. And it is what it is for a time frame of building sidewalks, but that was my angst.
And the only thing I would suggest strongly too is when they do have the public input sessions, which they will have, please attend. And, we'll try to make sure we're communicating that out to everyone, even through my office.
Anybody else, team?
Tom, if I may.
Please.
So is the long term, and appears that there is nothing we can do about it besides showing up and raising our voices to accelerate the sidewalk. But having said that, the vision for this neighborhood, and we changed the bylaws and the zoning in order to develop this area for walkable neighborhood. So in the long term, this park very well aligned with the vision for this area and how this area needs to develop. So I will urge to try to find a way to reduce the cost to make it more palatable. So this go forward, because I think it's important to put it. If there is a possibility for this park to be built in pieces and make the investment gradual, I don't know if anyone thought about that. Even that can be good, because you have 8 years to complete it. So why don't you send infrastructure first, and then so on. That is an idea. I don't know if it makes sense or not, but it's something that could be thought through.
So
The other thing
Both
is,
looked at that, John and I and Stephanie, and unlike a lot of our CPA projects, it's a difficult one to phase. The sexy part is that beautiful picture that you saw in color, starting with infrastructure, just
It doesn't catch the imagination as
right.
much.
It's pipes in the ground.
Yeah.
Expensive pipes in the ground.
And you bring up a good point, and we talked about phases quite often. I'm not an advocate of phases. It helps you financially in the short run, but in the long run, the cost escalates. I mean, we just look at, Stephanie and I were talking earlier today, as an example, the Mansfield Municipal Center just 5 or 6 years ago was $35 million. And now you look at what it's going to cost Easton to do it. So what I'm trying to say is that the costs in the long run would hurt substantially. Me personally, as a taxpayer and a member of these boards, that if we can all pull it off, get it done, and not having to worry about all these increased expenses over, say, a 5 to 10 year period. But well taken point, though.
Well, make it palatable. I mean, you can reduce the cost on certain things, and it might not be optimal. It might not be, the most beautiful park, but we need a park there. So let's make it happen.
And Tom, if I could,
Please.
When Ed said he couldn't support it at this point, I think he was quite blunt and being dire. I think what he meant was that we're really trying to work to bring that down below the $1 million in as if possible the $900,000 mark. And this will really be, I think Amos really understands it. This will be kind of like the gateway, the welcome to the Furnace Village district monument of sorts.
And,
Yeah. I wanted to say something about safety that is important. If there is going to be a park, even if there is no sidewalks that continue, I think the lights here, the traffic lights, need to be designed for pedestrian as well, even if originally there is no pedestrian. So it's something to discuss with the DPW or whoever is in charge of this, that at a certain point there will be a park, and the people from the sawmill want to cross the street to go to the park, go to stores on that side if there will be one. I think the lights should be designed at least to incorporate pedestrian in the future, if not done at the beginning.
Absolutely.
I just want to ask a couple people that I have not heard comments from if they do have thoughts or questions. Al, Dennis, and Amanda, are there any points that you'd like to share with the team?
I'd like to raise one for consideration. It seems like the water feature is costly because of the infrastructure to support it. I'm wondering if that couldn't be reconsidered and possibly a statue of some kind.
We're working on that.
Could be put in there and then just say, I didn't like the idea of water anyway, because, you know, there's water shortages, and I just think that it's not a good idea to quote unquote waste water for such a facility.
Well, usually the water feature is recycled, but it's to maintain it, that's the cost. And
Exactly.
infrastructure.
And the volume of water to supply it, that's the word.
It's not 100% recycling. You lose water every time you go cycle.
Through evaporation, you know,
exactly. We've been surprised that a non-custom design statue is a relatively reasonable investment, and that's why I'm certainly looking in that direction at this point.
Yeah, Ed and I have been trying to research online, and I haven't talked to you about it, Ed, but I did this morning with Stephanie, only because it came to me that I'm going to be away for a few days in Newport visiting my daughter. And there's a place in Newport that I've gone by for years, and they buy out big estates, from mansions to like over the hill McMansions. And they all kinds of statuary, from, you know, the typical Roman goddess to contemporary. So I'm going to take a look. We're going down the day after Thanksgiving, Ed and team, and see if I can hopefully find something down there. Just so everybody knows, one of the big ticket items on this, to have it custom made just for that centerpiece, not the infrastructure. There was a price point of $200,000, which I thought was
ridiculous.
Well, no, that's now we've been over that several times, and that again is a placeholder.
Correct.
The people who are designing the park for us put that in as a placeholder. We very quickly, John and I, determined that we don't need to spend that much money. Even a non-artist design custom statue, there are places that will make you a statue based on certain designs, are all in the $10,000 to $20,000 range. So it's a tenth of what we were talking about for a water feature.
So to reiterate what we were talking about earlier, we're working very hard, not because we want this as a group, but as a community, but we're also very aware of costs in this climate, especially. But we do want this, again, as a community, we hope we're getting great feedback in that direction. It's just getting it into the price point that without having it look like just a couple of benches and a few shrubs and a plaque. We want it to go above that.
I really like the shrubs. But that's...
If I could, I'll move us on and just ask if Dennis or Amanda have any comments.
I do.
Please, Amanda.
Being completely blunt, I cannot envision a set of circumstances where if you knocked $1 million off this number, that you would find any parcel of land in the town of Easton that taxpayers would pay that kind of money for something like this on, you know, irrespective of the, you know, the historical reasons. I just can't imagine it occurring, and I have real concerns also about, you know, in line with what Meredith said. You know, it almost becomes like an attractive nuisance when we don't have sidewalks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very very concerned that all of this time and energy and enthusiasm is going to be for naught.
Appreciate that.
I agree. I mean, speaking to people at town meeting, I don't share John's optimism about the enthusiasm for people to put a park down there, particularly after our large and necessary expenditure on the public safety facility as well. I would disagree with you that if we took $1 million off of it, I think the town probably would vote for it. Because Tom will use his wizardry to explain the difference between town budget and CPA. And that's just slightly more than what we're paying for the fence in that same area. And that was controversial, but did pass.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up, Ed, because what did we expel on that? 260,
260, yeah.
260 on the fence.
Yeah, if we could get, I think if we can get to $600,000 or $700,000, you'd have a shot at it. But even if it didn't pass, and you never can predict town meeting, at least we've done our due diligence, and we will have a plan that could be instituted in the future if it doesn't pass this year. Sure. There's the 325th anniversary coming up. The sidewalks will be in by then.
Feels like point heard though, Amanda. I think appreciate you sharing and bringing it up. Dennis?
I'm encouraged with, everybody's thought through the safety issues, and I'm encouraged that they'll be able to bring back a final application that hopefully will be within reason and that we can move it forward.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Any other comments, team? Otherwise, I'll wrap with some thoughts. All right. So just trying to, probably a lot of this has already been said. I do think, Amanda, you bring up a cost consideration. I've heard it echoed by fellow members of the committee. We all appreciate the expense that the town is committed to funding regarding the debt exclusion override. And I think for me, I've been reflecting since that on what that might mean for the role of the CPC. I could see us being asked for more to support other projects in town, whether it's for the school projects like we had this past year. But I think you're right. Everybody is right on this call to be thoughtful about what we just did and to be contemplating what our asks might be in the future. And if they are to escalate, then we'll have precious resource will get even more precious. The timing and safety aspect stood out to me from the conversation as well. So that's on me for not appreciating we were 8 to 10 years out on the walkway connection. That said, I do want to express leadership is painful at times, meaning I believe this corridor will be a crown gem for the town of Easton for a long period of time to come. It started with planning years and probably a decade ago, and we saw sewer come in. We've seen development occur. We've created zoning changes. So we're well on a trajectory, and this particular parcel could play a very key role in what that corridor looks like. So I think it's important. It is important work, and I'm glad that we're pursuing it. I would ask, so something jumped out at me in terms of the acquisition of other statues or features. And what came to my mind was the American Civil War monument that we moved. So for example, if there happens to be anything that, and I don't know the answer to this, and I'll ask Steph if you could keep it in mind and the team could, but if we were moving that Civil War monument now, I wonder if that might have been an opportunity for us to have brought it here. It would have been moving it further, but again, just taking something that has historical significance to the town of Easton already and being able to showcase it in a more meaningful way that people could enjoy, that might be an option. I don't know if there's anything like that at Moreau Hall or Center School or the old fire or police station, but just an idea. Ed, you would probably potentially know best about.
Yeah, the Furnace Village area did not support the Civil War. They were meaning no disrespect, Democrats who didn't support President Lincoln and made that abundantly clear throughout the war?
Gotcha. So maybe there would be alternative, but of a similar genre of thought. But again, just an idea that maybe there's something that's important that could use a larger showcase opportunity. I also just feel what we're all probably saying is that we need more time here, that this is a draft application for a reason. We have these lively discussions exactly for this purpose. Hopefully it informs you, the applicants, as to what we're thinking and feeling. And so coming back to us with a more thorough application, I think would be appreciated. The highlights I heard were the water feature, safety I heard, timing I heard, and certainly the statue. So I covered those. Is that fair? So again, please, the feedback is constructive. You guys know this. Make sure your team knows our appreciation for the efforts they've put in. This is not an easy topic. And I think we all continue to be surprised by the escalating cost of construction. So I would ask the team if the timing was such that we couldn't get there for this go round, is there a very large negative for it not being on this current warrant article other than timing? And I'm just asking as to try to understand. Look, if this was about $100,000, I wouldn't be arguing that. But I think what the savings are that the committee's looking to achieve is a little bit more than that, or maybe a lot, depending upon who you ask. And so the work might just take some time. So I'm just trying to figure out that thing. And Steph, I feel like you really want to say something.
Yeah, I do. Because I meant to mention this before. One of the thoughts, and Ed touched on it briefly, one of the thoughts about the memorial and the timing was to time it with the tricentennial celebration, to hopefully unveil it at that point in time. And in fact, I'm going to forget her first name, Ed and John. Ms. McGee, who is a member of the Tricentennial Committee.
Michelle, yeah.
Michelle, yes, seemed very interested in that also occurring. She mentioned that one of the goals of the committee and the Tricentennial event is to have something that remains after all the festivities, and as kind of a reminder of the Tricentennial, and thought that maybe this could tie into that. And then, of course, the costs. I mean, we're hearing that inflation is starting to stabilize, but I wouldn't think that they were going to get lower than what they are right now. Material costs and labor costs.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean that, you know, we really do appreciate the feedback from everybody and the timing.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll hear back next month. Is that a fair?
That's our goal. Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
I do have to commend the design team, BSC, who have been incredibly accommodating to
patient
redesign and patience. Yes, exactly.
Awesome. And team, if anybody has ideas, please don't wait. Reach out to Ed and John directly. And I'm sure they'd be receptive. And, you know, Steph and Wayne, I would challenge the town representatives to also help us with this. I think we all see the merit, we all see the value, we all see the long-term vision. I think we're all very sensitive to the cost structure right now. And if there are ways that the town could assist us, then we would welcome that as well. I wouldn't preclude you folks from having ideas.
Yeah. I love your idea, Tom, about something we might be able to find that might be meaningful, more so in the town. And you bring up the monument. That monument alone, of course, that's a big structure, obviously, but that was a little over $100,000 just to move it, and that was only to move it a few yards.
Well said.
Only imagine what it would cost to move it a few miles.
And, you know, I was going to ask this question, and Steph and Wayne, if you folks could let us know, and John, I know that you gave a great video interpretation of that site as well. But the question I would ask is, how much did that area cost us to create? And it would just be nice to know that for my personal reference of I can. What was that?
It's a good point, Tom.
Which area was that, Tom? I'm sorry.
The recreation of the Civil War monument area.
Yeah.
If it's $100,000 to move, and it was a couple $100,000 to create that space, it would help me wrap my head around that this space is twice the size of that, and it would help maybe just give some context.
That's a great composition. Yeah, to compare that.
So if the team's okay, I move us off this topic with the expectation we get an update next, and just thank everybody for their candid and honest comments. All right. We are not going to do the MBTA zoning. Is Wendy here for the financial update?
No, that's just to let you know that she will be coming to the December meeting.
Ah, thank you. I was thinking about that. So I just didn't want to keep too many people waiting.
And Tom, I think what you had asked, and again, I'm kind of running out of time here, so I am going to make Wayne I'm going to try to make Wayne the host so that when I drop off, the meeting doesn't end.
Yeah, I got this. Now I'm good. I just want to make sure Wendy wasn't here.
Yeah.
For December team. So just wanted to give everybody a heads up that in December we'll be asking Wendy to come to give us a financial update like she does each year. If you have questions or thoughts or specific issues or topics you'd like some more detail on than less from prior years, please just send Stephanie, Wayne, and I an email asking that, and we'll consolidate those responses and get them over to Wendy. I do want to ask a financial related question. Al brought up a great point. I think we have, Wayne, I just asked, could you clarify the status of the pickleball courts, the funds that are left? Because I believe that project should be closed out. I don't think that there are anything else going on there that we've all agreed to execute against.
So could I jump in and give the update on that?
Sure.
So we're still holding the contingency, and I think it's roughly $12,000. And the reason for that is that there have been portions of the coding that is failing. We've had the contractor who did that come out. I had him come out again. He took a look at it. It's too late in the season to really fix it. And they're extending the warranty until next year, and they'll be out next year. So we're still holding the contingency. So we wouldn't be closing it out until we finalize that and we're satisfied with the top course, the coding.
Okay. If I can understand that, if I could get an accounting of that project, just how much we've spent, that would be helpful for me individually.
Yep, we can certainly do that.
Thanks.
One point on that, how much is left in that? It should be over $200,000, right? After buying the curtain, the soundproofing curtain.
I don't know if Wayne can put his hands on it immediately. It's
I'm hunting around over here.
I think it's probably at least around 200,000, Al.
Would the committee be interested in closing out except for the contingency and close that part whenever it's resolved? It would free up $200,000 to be used by the committee.
Al, would it be acceptable if I just get that reconciliation first, and then that way we can bring the details before the committee for the expenses that we had, and then the timing to go forward?
Absolutely. Yep. Perfect.
But I think we're on the same page without a doubt. Does that sound good, Wayne and Stephanie? So we'll get an accounting, and you can send it to Al and I. Actually, Al, as I mentioned, was thoughtful enough to prompt the question. And so if we could just get that reconciliation, it would help us understand the expenses of the project, and we'd probably just circle back with questions ensuring the finality, and then look to recoup those funds. Perfect.
Yes.
All right,
and-
Wayne, you're the host now. No pressure.
Uh-oh.
Team, the last item that I wanted to bring up tonight, so we got the December, is the Oaks Ames Memorial Hall. This is not a discussion of the application in any way, shape, or form. This is a discussion just for us and our team about the process. And specifically, what I am thoughtful about is the size of the project. And I think everybody received the list of the items and the questions that we sent forth. Does anybody, first, let me just ask, does anybody feel like anything was missing or omitted from the comments that everybody submitted?
I think it hit all the spots.
Great. So for me, one of the questions at the last meeting, and I have sensed this as well, is what does the process now look like? What does the timing look like? The applicant has reached out in terms of timing in different ways. And so I wanted to ask this team the consideration and set clear expectations. So what in any project, especially of this size, what I want to avoid is at the last minute, we have everything, and then we're forced to make a quick decision. And I feel like of a project of this magnitude, that's just not the way I like to operate. I don't think it leads to the best possible outcomes. And so what I want to offer to do is to work with the applicant to get the pieces completed before, again, we come back and review an application. And then when it's done, when all of the pieces are in that we've asked for, that's when we'll move forward as a committee. I don't know if that's possible this year. And after looking at the long list, that's what also prompted this conversation I'd like to have with the committee to get your thoughts. I'm real concerned and uncomfortable about shoehorning in what I believe should probably be a $10 million project, because we want to do it all. I think we all have expressed that. But what I don't want to do is to feel like I have to force that in the next 3 months or 2 months, when we've tried to work for the last 1.5 to 2 years on this project. So I wanted to put that out there for the committee to engage, get your thoughts, and just try to help me navigate this. I think it's an important project. I think we have a right for all of the things we've asked for. I think we've spent a long period of time, almost 2 years, trying to get many of these things. So that's where I'm at. So I'm kind of asking for help in this one. I have my own set of kind of feelings that I've probably shared a little bit. And I just, in many ways, it's just not as smooth, and probably most big projects aren't a process as I would like to have had. So I'll be quiet and ask your help. Ed, you first one to raise your hands, and John, you had a finger, so Ed's 5 fingers beat your 1.
Okay, just very quickly, I think we're doing absolutely the right thing. The list of questions here are all the things we really need to get the answers to. This is not like your typical CPA thing. It's almost more like a collective bargaining agreement negotiation where both sides have strong opinions and are slow to change. But I think we've made progress over the last 2 years. One thing that I would urge us to consider, and the hall as well, is that if we approve it this year by some miracle, and I think the $10 million price tag is a little tough to sell in May, but if all of a sudden that went through, that would mean that the hall would essentially be closed during the tricentennial, when it might actually have a use that would make it more of a focal point of the town again. So putting it off a year might not actually be the worst thing in the world, as long as it doesn't risk the structure of the building itself.
Yeah. John, you had your finger raised?
I think, you've hit all the proper points. I think you've handled it well, very well. I think all the objectives that have been sent to us are spot on. I think the difference is we've seen it on paper, the same objectives, which nothing has changed, which is good because that's what we need, those points to get hit, but we actually need to see them being accomplished. And if we see that, I think we can move forward. We just can't see it on a page. It's got to be jumping off that page, being actually done. We actually see it. I've said this before because, you know, we're saying 10 million. By the time this gets off the ground, it's going to be 12 to 15. And as Stefan knows, and Ed knows too, I always include bonding in everything. So we're talking 15 to 18 million dollars if we're going to be bonding this. This is a big nut. If I'm totally for this project, I agree with it. This building is an icon, but it needs every point addressed. And again, I repeat, not on just paper. We need to actually see it in motion. We need to see it accomplished. And then I think this committee, I'm speaking for myself, but I think this committee would move forward much quicker.
I agree with John on that. Very, very quickly. There are certain things on our list, like letters from abutters and things like that, outreach kind of things that could have been underway already that haven't been. And I'd like to see those going forward before we approve.
And I think everybody appreciates the reason for that. We asked for that, especially because one of them, as the design was provided, actually has an active role, and that would be the library. And, you know, for me, if we are talking about a project that impacts directly in a butter with responsibilities potentially for maintenance, that's a lot of the reason for why letters like that are helpful. It indicates to us that there's already pre-approval, and what we're not going to find is a potential issue down the road where somebody blocks the project or the part that deals with them. So it's natural to ask for those. And that's again, not new news. That's something part of the TRC that Stephanie, myself, Wayne, and Greg were a part of. We recommended that and made the connection with the library on the project as well on behalf of the applicant. So those are good points. The other thing is, you know, we still need some clarity. I know that we walked away from our last meeting with some questions as to whether or not we could even do the parking lot in the smaller format that we've reached out or are reaching out to town council. So there's still a material amount of moving pieces in my mind that are creating probably that are clouding the picture as well. There seems to be a lot. Al, I don't know. I apologize. I think you may have had your hand raised for a comment or not. Okay, and you're on mute. Does anybody else have any thoughts that can help frame what we're trying to accomplish in the best process and path going forward?
Well, and one point that's worth thinking about is just at least take 50% more than what you're looking for, you know, the cost in terms of interest rate. So if you've got 10 million, you're probably looking at another 5 million in interest, or $15 million project. So I think that's going to take the vast majority of funds for the next multiple years to try to fund that and pay for the interest on the building.
The big expense.
Well, that raises another issue, which when we started this process, we were thinking about funding the hall is going to preclude us from doing other projects.
Yeah. And I think that's part of our discussion. That's part of our priorities. And I think that goes back to the role the CPC plays. One thing I might recommend, if the group agrees, is the formation of a subcommittee to continue to work directly with the applicant to coordinate the receipt of these materials, probably similar to the TRC that we had before. So we had been meeting monthly with the applicant, working very hard, including the town administration, and the select board chair. I would ask that we start that up again. I'm not sure it has to be a technical review committee, but certainly a subcommittee from the CPC to work directly with the applicant, so that as the materials are completed, we can review, that subcommittee can review them and begin to package them and to report back to the CPC each month on progress or periodically. Does that make sense? I just, what I don't want is for the applicant to go away, work for a month, come back, we engage. I'd rather have the ability for some more direct line of communication that just adds a little bit of value from both sides of that process. Meredith?
This isn't an answer to your question about a subcommittee, but you know, we talked at a couple town meetings ago when Center School was the children were leaving there and what would be done with Center School, and I had spoken at that meeting to advocate for the why, because I believe that public and private partnerships are sometimes a necessity. Has that been explored further here? I'm sorry, I've just been working on other projects, so I haven't really rolled up my sleeves other than our meetings here and the one that we attended with the presentation from the Oak Thames Hall people. But, you know, has that been explored further with these costs that we're talking about? I'm apprehensive about it.
Yeah, I think the applicant was working off our direction of a full-size project. They have not come forth in any of their applications with millions of dollars of private partnership donations. I think they've worked hard to secure some grant money, for example, and there are also contributions. But if I remember correctly, Wayne and Stephanie, the amounts were less than 500,000. They may have totaled close to 350 to 400,000 at best. I think it was 250 state, maybe 100 from something else, and a smaller amount from something else. But that just use that as a directional barometer, Meredith. So $15 million project, maybe $500,000 identified at this particular point. But I think that, you know, again, it's always fair to ask these questions. We're just contemplating trying to how we can best support this project. Regarding so we can certainly raise it with the applicant and continue to challenge them, and I think we always have, and we should continue to do so. So I'm with you on that one. Thoughts on the subcommittee?
Amanda, I think it would be a good idea, and I think it's very important that we're giving the applicant guidance that's consistent, because I'll use my view versus Tom's view as an example. You're approaching this, obviously, as you would as a business person, finance person, and I'm approaching it as a lawyer. And you know, I am much more interested in the historical preservation than I am, you know, the business plan or the parking or how this is going to be a viable facility, because of my beliefs about the purpose of the CPA. So I feel like we need to get aligned so that we are sending a consistent message and not getting a plan that de-emphasizes the things that one half of the board or one group of the board wants, and then annoys the others. And it would be very helpful, I think, to get that guidance from council that we talked about.
Yep. And Stephanie, in case it wasn't clear from the reminder of last time, and I appreciate, I think Amanda's spot on. My goal of ensuring an entity that is to ensure it can help sustain its own capital investment going forward, because I don't think to create a self-sustaining entity that can fund its capital requirements going forward. And currently, in its current incarnation, it can't. So that's my thought. I don't want it to be a for-profit, make $1 bazillion, so to speak. It would be nice if it did that and couldn't reinvest it back in from a capital perspective.
And I agree that that's incredibly important. I'm sorry, I can't see people at all, so I don't know who's raising their hand. The issue, the applicant seems to be hearing that and saying, oh, well, okay, well, I'll do all these things that will make it a money-making venture, and not do things that are making historical preservation sense. So,
agreed. It has to be both.
If we're going to hand over basically all of our money for the next several years, we want to make sure that we're doing it with people who have the wherewithal to spend that money appropriately.
Yep, agreed. Ed, you have your hand raised?
Yes, I agree with Amanda, and I think that at the last meeting, the proponent seemed much more willing to push money into the historic preservation pile than before. I think there was a little bit of lack of clarity on their part about, you know, where we were going with that. However, since we do have a lawyer here, it might actually be good to have her review the underlying legal structure of this public-private ancient agreement, because part of the assertion of the hall board over the years has been that there's a fiscal viability protection built into the original deed of gift. And I know that these old-fashioned deeds of gift, public-private thingies are kind of frowned upon now. So maybe we need to evaluate that too as we go along.
Well, if nobody's opposed, I do appreciate Amanda's background and would ask if she would serve on the subcommittee. I also would like to just continue provide the continuity of all of the efforts from before through this. Is there anybody else? I think a historical angle, I'm happy to add, no pressure. But, you know, it would just add value. So if anybody feels passionately like they'd like to, obviously we can't have 5. I think 3 is probably a decent size, but I also don't want to cut somebody off if there's a passion. But I feel like, Ed, you raised your hand. I feel like, Amanda, I just volunteered you.
I'm happy to.
I'm interested. What was that, Amanda?
She said she's
I'm
happy.
happy to do it.
Awesome. Does the team feel like the 3 of us? John, do you? Oh, you're muted. John, you're muted.
If you can, I consider it. If you can give me a little.
Yeah.
day.
Is 4 okay? Are we in danger, Steph or Wayne, of violating anything at 4 members being on a subcommittee?
I don't think so. I mean, it's
Wayne's making a face.
but I think a subcommittee still, it has to meet and post agendas. So we
Yeah,
need to
a
look at,
public meeting and a posted agenda.
yes.
Got it.
Oh.
Is the technical review committee is that a different type of a committee that?
It
was-
did not have enough, it did not have a critical
did not
number
have a
of
quorum, yeah.
members. Yeah. It only
It-
had like 1 or 2 from relevant committees, so it never violated the open meeting law requirements.
So 4 is too many. Is that what I'm
I
hearing?
think so.
Yes.
I think 2 might even be the most, but I don't know. We would have to check.
No, I don't know that there's a limit to a subcommittee. It would have to post and,
I'm talking about a technical review committee. The
Okay,
goal of this
so,
is not to
but
add
I'm not
complication.
sure what the comprising members of the committee.
Yes,
I think we'd need to get back to you and check
that would be great.
what the number
Yeah,
is.
I think it's less what we're calling it and more who is on it. And we can have 4, 5, or 9 members of the CPC on whatever committee we want, but once you hit a certain number, which I think might even be over 2, I'm not sure, you have to post as an open public meeting and post the agenda for it. So we can confirm with town council what the cutoff number is.
Yeah,
But-
if you could, that would be helpful. And team, and just for anybody in the public that might be watching this, the goal is not to create a lack of transparency, but
Right.
instead to create an amount of efficiency and flexibility so that we could meet on the fly. Hey, I've got
Yep.
this. Can we meet on Tuesday? Well, it's Monday, so no, we can't if I have to post an open meeting law. So the goal would be simply to have flexibility and to be able to move quickly and responsively on such an important project, and then bring it back to this committee as a body to get an update. So I guess, Wayne, Stephanie, if you could just email me and let me know what shakes out from your review. I'll reach out to Amanda and Ed first with the news, and then John, I'll let you know.
Mhm.
Full transparency, sounds like it's not looking good though, from that perspective, John. But I think in spirit, the committee seems to support this overall approach. And it seems like, to recap, there are several of us that are struggling with how to move forward with this project in the best way to ensure success overall. Okay, is that a good, decent summary?
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you all for that. I don't think there's anything else on the application. Steph has to go pick up a much loved cat.
Yep,
We do
I'm
have our-
going to leave now then. Thank you.
Yep,
Bye.
we have our next meeting Thursday, December 14th at 7 p.m. I have no items that are not reasonably anticipated. So again, I thank you all for your time and your engagement. It means a lot. And I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Lee and Ventresco, Jim Lee,
Aye.
Ed Hands,
Aye.
John Ventresco, Al Benson,
Aye.
Thomas Kedem,
Aye.
Meredith H,
Aye.
Dennis Sheedy.
Aye, and happy Thanksgiving to all.
Yeah.
Same to
Yeah.
you.
Good point.
Amanda Varela.
Thank you.
An I believe, and Tom Broussard is an I. And as Dennis said, happy Thanksgiving. I hope everybody has a lot to be grateful for, and hope you enjoy it.
Right.
Bye, team.
Good night, folks.
Thanks, everyone. Be well.
Yep.